All right, thanking and praising God once again for, quite simply, the Sermon on the Mount. Let's call Matthew chapter 6, Motives. Understanding that once again, we're looking at the kingdom, this time from the perspective of Christ's warnings in the Sermon on the Mount regarding our motives, low key or not so low key. Understanding that he's going to seem to talk about motives in two ways: our motives to chase praise and approval, and our motives regarding money, our financial motives, or our drive to get money. And so the first, how many verses? First 18 verses or so are going to seem to talk about that drive to seek approval from the perspective of doing holy things to get the pat on the back that we sometimes need. Understanding that praise or the need for affection or affirmation, that's a healthy need, but it can get out of hand. And so even though he's only going to talk about it from the perspective of doing righteousness to get approval, understand, we are in a culture where it is a thing to chase likes. And if you have ever been disappointed by trying to grow something that's dependent upon likes or just being liked, whether it's online or not, you understand that that is an unreliable basis upon which to build self-esteem. But beyond self-esteem, Christ is warning us about the times when we actually do get the praise and the danger that comes along with that in three areas. One, giving, being generous in order to get praise and recognition, praying in order to appear holy and get praise and recognition, and fasting, going without food to seem super holy and get praise and recognition. Three things that in our modern phrasing can get us those likes, but they compromise the gift that God would give. And as we've discussed from time to time, God's gifts come with his security system or his insurance, for lack of a better term, reminding me that I got a chance to see a story not too long ago about a woman who lost her home or a large part of it in the recent fires and mudslides that followed in California, talking about the way in which the increasing danger in her area made sure that she could not get insurance for exactly the kind of damage that she got. And understanding that even though our insurance system is as flawed as the world around us, it is better oftentimes to have an insured blessing as opposed to an uninsured blessing, because when life happens, then the uninsured blessing is just kind of at the mercy of circumstance. And likewise, when we get those likes and those clicks, the praise from people, it comes and goes. Understanding that life can bring us into situations where the same people that are giving us likes and clicks can turn on us. Understanding that God is more of what the Bible describes as steadfast. His blessings are insured in a way that popularity is not. And so similarly, the chapter is going to shift from its warning about our motives regarding praise and recognition to talking about our motives regarding money, to talk about a very famous phrase in verse 19 saying, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be." Also a very famous phrase. But the thing to notice is that God does not simply leave us with a blind faith. There are ways in which he can give us gifts that give us evidence of the fact that his blessing comes with a higher level of insurance than simply striking out on our own. I have seen videos, as I've mentioned from time to time, of people who might have fallen on hard times, but they go viral because their gifts are still as sharp as they might have been when they had time to practice every day. Sometimes these folks are living on the streets. You put them on a piano and you can still hear the fact that they are or at least were, a virtuoso. Same thing. Voices, different talents that people can't give that are still insured beyond their circumstance. Those things do not keep them from falling on hard times, but they come from a God who is telling you that if he can ensure that blessing, there is much more if you believe. You don't have to believe, but one of the advantages of being a believer is we can take evidence of things that he ensures in this life and say, it might be better for me to invest in better motives or higher motives than simply being driven by chasing money. And so with that, he's going to talk about in verses 22 and 23, the way that our eye, or the things that we focus on, have a lot to do with having healthy motives. Understanding here, he's just going to say generally, the things that we look at in a lot of ways enlighten us. And if we are focused on things that are toxic, then we can only expect to get toxic results. On the other hand, if we are focused on things that are genuinely productive and help improve our motives and shift our focus towards healthy things, then we can start expecting better results, even if the things around us are falling apart. My ad lib, of course, but chapter 6, verses 22 and 23 are helping us to talk about the way in which the things that we look at in particular help improve or really destroy our motives. Going on in verses 24, or in verse 24, he's going to say, nobody can serve two masters. In the famous passage that says, you can't serve God and money. He's talking about motives once again. And beyond that, he's not simply guiding us away from unhealthy motives, but he is talking about ways that even though they might seem cheesy to you when you don't necessarily believe in God or his power to actually help you improve your life, he's given us some simple solutions to not only the problem with greed, but there's a flip side of the problem with wanting too much money, and it's the problem of having so little money that we become anxious. Similar to what we'll see in the Proverbs toward the end, where whoever the proverb writer is, I don't remember, I'll try to post it, of course, says, God, please don't give me so much that I'm dismissive of you, my paraphrase, but please don't give me so little that I compromise my integrity by doing some shameful things to get money. And so with that, God is saying one of the remedies to that temptation is don't be anxious about your life, your basics about what you would eat, drink, or clothe yourself with. As he goes on an extended conversation or discussion that says 3 times, do not be anxious in verse 25 once, in verse 31 again, and then at the end of the chapter in verse 34. The first 2 times is going to say, don't be anxious about your life or the things that you would, as we said before, eat, drink, or wear. And then finally, he's going to say, don't be anxious about tomorrow, because the stress about tomorrow can be almost just as bad as the stress about today. As a matter of fact, the stress about tomorrow can ruin a day when I actually have enough. Understanding that, he's going to say that there is another remedy, similar to a recurring theme that we have seen in the Old Covenant. Verse 33 is going to say, but seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. It can be easy to hear that because a lot of us might have heard that since the time we were a kid, but it goes back to a deeper concept that I think we saw in the life of David, who realized that not in his bow or his sword could he really trust, because his skills could fail him, especially to the degree he was doing things with ill motives. For example, his sin with Bathsheba. Even though he was built up to be king by God, his sin against Bathsheba and Uriah motivated God to essentially knock it all down and drive him away from his own kingdom. David, realizing that no matter how much he had built up, if God was not ensuring it, as we saw earlier in the chapter, it was just temporary. And so wanting a more enduring blessing, understanding that God had made him a promise to establish a throne or a kingdom through him that would last all the way through the Christ that's preaching this sermon, David redirected himself back onto a path with healthy motives. And that reminds me why the Christ is perfectly situated to help us understand why, if we're going to build a success that actually feels successful and enduring success, our motives matter.